I'll click Command Methods, which brings up another form that lets me try out a number of different command methods. We'll start with the first two. The first, ExecuteNonQuery, allows me to perform a data manipulation language query. We step into this, and of course we start by creating our connection object. Once the connection is set up, we'll set up a using block for the command as well. Now the using block thing, this is iffy here, because a using block really should be used for an object that uses unmanaged resources that we have to release. The command object really doesn't in this case, since it implements the iDisposable interface and therefore can be used in a using block. My theory is I'm putting it in a using block. Nothing terrible will happen if you don't. With a connection, you really do have to release it. With a command, nothing's going to happen, but it can't hurt. All right, so here we've set up our command to be a new SQL command, and we're passing in our SQL string, which is update products, set unit price equal unit price times 1.1. We're giving the prices a 10% kick, where units in stock is less than 10. If there's less than 10 units in stock, we're raising the price. That makes sense, I guess, in retail in some strange, bizarro world. Okay, so we pass the connection object as a parameter to the constructor as well. So the command object knows what it needs to do, it knows where to go to do it, but the connection's not open. So we have to open the connection. We call the ExecuteNonQuery method of the command object, which returns back the number of rows that were affected. And then just to show what happened, we'll display how many rows were touched. In this case, there were 12 rows that had a quantity of units in stock less than 10, and we updated them all by increasing their price by 10%. Let's finish up there. Okay, so that was a DML query. We manipulated data in the database. The next example shows a DDL query. That is, we're going to create a stored procedure. Same thing happens. We hit our breakpoint. We start by setting up our SQL connection object. And again, in a using block, setting up our SQL command. Now this time, we're going to call a procedure named getSQLStringDrop. That procedure, which we'll step into here, calculates the SQL text we'll need. So here's the code, and we just come along and add in if exists, select name from sysObject where name equals add category. So we're checking to see if a procedure named add category exists. And type is stored procedure, then we drop the thing. So we check to see if it exists. If it does, we drop it. And all we've done here is create the string that would tell our command what to do. Okay. Now that we have that string and the connection object, 2 steps. Open the connection, execute the query. Now, of course, this one doesn't return any rows because it didn't affect any rows. It just did what it needed to do. We now want to create the stored procedure. So this time, we'll step into getSQLStringCreate, and this one actually creates the SQL string necessary to create the stored procedure. This one is create procedure add category, get some parameters as, here's the actual stored procedure with insert into categories, and this is just text. We're building up a string that defines the body of our stored procedure. We return that back. We execute the query, and notice, by the way, I didn't create a new command object. I used my existing one. Because the existing one had a perfectly reasonable connection's already open, I just modified the command text. No reason to create a new one. Use the one you have. We execute nonQuery again, and at this point we display a message saying we succeeded. The only reason that's there is because if something had gone wrong and we triggered an exception, we would jump to our exception block here. Nothing went wrong, so we step right into this message box and show we created it just fine. A later example will use that stored procedure, but for now, we're done creating data and manipulating data using the command object.